Hey guys, welcome to HipHughes History. How you doing? I'm so excited to hit you up with a little bit more of the learning. This time, guys, we're going to kill right to work, which is sweeping the nation, with Michigan poised to be the 25th state to adopt right to work laws. And you're probably wondering, what the heck is a right to work law? How can I be against that? Maybe you are, maybe you aren't. Let's find out, and then you can leave it down in the comments. So, certainly we're not going to do a union history video for you, but you should know that prior to the New Deal, unions were really having a tough time. They were having a tough time organizing, and they were having a tough time doing it legally. Really, big business and government, in a sense, are in cahoots together to not only, in some cases, make unions illegal, but to use constitutional mechanisms such as the Interstate Commerce Clause to severely limit unions' ability to go on strike and to collectively bargain with employers for higher wages and better benefits. This tide turns during the New Deal with the passage of the National Labor Relations Act in the 1930s. This is a New Deal law, which is going to allow employers and employees to set up contracts that are going to have closed shops. This means that the employees, once they unionize, the union will collectively represent all employees, meaning closed to people who don't want to join that union. If you get a job in a closed union scenario, you have to join the union and you have to pay dues. In many cases, that dues was taken out of your paycheck. And of course, that money was used not only to do things like collectively bargain or to take legal paths if that was necessary, but also to support politicians in many cases in campaigns that supported workers or workers' objectives. There's a huge backlash to this from the business community, and they're successful in overriding Harry Truman's veto of the 1947 Taft-Hartley Act. So that becomes the law of the land in 1947, now allowing states to opt out of closed shops, to basically be able to ban them. So that's what 24 of the 50 states have done under the banner of right to work. What that really means is the right not to join a union. And this is going to have tremendous consequences not only on business but on employees and unions across the country. So we're going to take a look at the good, we're going to take a look at the bad, and we're going to take a look at the ugly. And then you can go watch a spaghetti western. How about that? So there's a couple of entities that really are fighting for the right to work. One of them really comes out of a Southern business lobby group, which created the National Right to Work Legal Defense Foundation, which is set up in a sense to defend workers who don't want to join unions. But there is a huge amount of business and economic power behind that might not be all from the lower end of the spectrum from employees. It might be coming from employers and also the Chamber of Commerce. And their argument basically is twofold. One, it is a liberty argument that nobody should be forced to join an organization. In a sense, it's a freedom of association argument or a Fifth Amendment argument that you're using coercion to make people do something that they don't want to do. The second and the strongest argument is probably for economic growth. For instance, unemployment in right-to-work states is about 1% lower. More jobs are created in right-to-work states, and there's also more economic growth. The Wall Street Journal did a study where they claim from 1980 to 2011, where right-to-work states had a 71% increase in economic growth. States that still had closed shops only had about a 30% growth. There are economists that will argue it's much more layered than that. Many right-to-work states also have many other pro-business policies, like Texas, for instance, has no state income tax. So many businesses might be attracted to that. And also the idea that they don't have to deal with unions in that state as well. But economic growth and liberty are the main arguments. Let's take a look at the cons. So on the other side of the coin is really the union argument that unions really are the only true representation collectively of employees. If unions aren't representing employees, then employees in a sense are on their own and they're not going to have that protection. There's a free rider argument, meaning that, these unions that do exist, when an employee decides not to pay dues and not to join the union, they're still benefiting from what the union is doing. They're still getting the higher wages that the union is negotiating. They're still getting the better benefits without having to pay those dues. And there's also some statistics that people that are against right to work laws are going to argue. For instance, in right to work states, salaries are lower. There is more of a job creation engine, but the majority of those jobs are low-wage jobs. 26% of new job creation in right-to-work states are low-wage jobs, when only 18% of the same can be said in states that still have closed shops. Insurance. Unions get better insurance for their employees. So in states that have closed shops, there is a lower rate of uninsured than states that have right-to-work laws. We should also mention kind of the pension concept. Unions, are very powerful in terms of getting pensions for their employees, and a pension going into old age can make the difference between poverty and somebody living a comfortable lifestyle. In right-to-work states, in the private market, only 20% of employers offer some type of pension to their employees, where if you're in a union, it's 71%. So there's that to kind of point to as well. There's also a lower household median income in right-to-work states, and there's also much less spent on things like education, and that might just show you the priority of those states. And it's a pretty whopping statistics. Right-to-work states spend 31% less of their budget on education than states that have closed shops. There's also an argument in terms of safety that workplace fatalities are 54% higher in states that have right-to-work laws, and unions would argue this is because the union is not there to basically keep employers in check, that employers are really getting much more flexibility in terms of how they pay workers, they treat workers, and the condition in which workers work. So those are the very, very basic arguments. There's also an argument of free association. There's, nobody is forcing the employer and the employee to come together to make that negotiation to have a closed shop. So the libertarian argument on the side of the unions, even though they might not like unions, is that this is the government interfering with two private entities. And we should also make the claim that this doesn't affect always government workers. State government workers need different laws passed. So for instance, in Wisconsin, a law was passed which severely killed the ability of teacher unions to collectively bargain and collect dues, when it kept exempt firefighting unions and police unions. And people that are a little skeptical of these laws would point to that and say that's because firefighters and policemen are a little bit farther to the right than, say, teachers. So it shows you that the lens of these laws isn't so much economic activity as it is partisan politics. But it's complex. What else can I say? There's no doubt about it, right-to-work laws severely limit a union's ability to collectively represent employees. And whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, I guess at this point it's where we turn it over to you. Leave it down in the comments below. Do you think that right-to-work laws, first, are named aptly? Do you think that they work? Do you think that they should be? Do you think that we have a place for unions in the 21st century, or are unions kind of a corroded idea from the 20th century that need to be wiped off the face of the earth? Or is it somewhere in between? We always love hearing your comments, so go have that battle royale. Just do it politely down below, and make sure that if you haven't subscribed to HipHughes History, I don't know what to do. I can't use force and coercion, can I? Hit that big red button and you'll zip off through the internet. So subscribe to HipHughes History for free, fun, focused lessons. What else can I say? Other than where attention goes, energy always flows. And we'll see you guys next time that you press my buttons.